Welcome to It's My Job to Know Yours, a podcast where on every week we discuss a different career, job, industry, and today I am lucky enough to sit down with my good friend Donna.
Hello.
Now, hey Donna, how are you today?
Pretty good.
I had been wanting to start this podcast for years now, and it's been years in the making. It actually originated when I was working as a waiter at a restaurant, and I had a table that I was serving where the guy worked at NASA. And when I was talking to him a little bit, I was like, we all have heard of NASA, but I don't know what somebody does at NASA. Do you build rocket ships? Are you planning a trip to the moon? Like, really, what is it that you do? And it really got me thinking about all the jobs in the world, all these different industries, and what it is that people do on their day-to-day lives, because to them it's second nature, but to us it's fascinating. So I kind of set out on this trajectory to really start this podcast / YouTube channel where I would be interviewing a different interesting job every week. And it took me a while to find an amazing producer, my good friend Alan behind the camera. He does all my editing. He does all of our filming. He's been a godsend, because this show would be nothing without him. And it's amazing that I found this studio, the Baltimore Improv Group, who, let us film here and record here. And it's just, the pieces all came together. And then I needed to find that perfect first guest. And when I met you, Donna, I knew that we actually filmed these episodes out of order. So we've actually done a couple of episodes in the past. I knew that I wanted your episode to be the very first one. Just hearing you talk, and number one, you're an amazing conversationalist.
Diarrhea of the mouth.
Number two, just what your job is, working in a morgue, removing donor eyeballs from cadavers. I mean, one half of me is fascinated, and I can talk to you all day. The other half of me wants to vomit in a bucket just hearing. We had chatted a little bit off camera about what it is that you did, and I think that this is going to be an amazing first episode for viewers who are interested. That's the goal. That's the goal for this show, is to be informative. It's to be educational, to be a little bit funny, to be a little bit interesting, and just this is a show that I would watch. This is something that I'm interested in other people's jobs, because I don't know what I want to do with my life. So I decided to make it my job to know yours. Today, I am sitting here with the wonderful, the fabulous Donna. Donna, you worked in a morgue for 15 years, about
15, 20 years.
And your job was to remove eyeballs from dead bodies. Is that correct?
It was called enucleation of the eyeballs of a homicide, suicide, or any type of death. I went to the morgue. I would look over the body. I had a complete list that I had to look at this person. Sometimes I'd have to flip them over to make sure there's no fresh tattoos, IVs, or anything. And then after the autopsy, where they cut from ear to ear, pull down the face, they took out the brain, I would go back and pull the face back up over the skull and either take whole eyes or just cornea.
You talk about like pulling people's faces off like you're tying ribbons on a present box.
The face is just a mask. So you can't, when I walked into the morgue, first thing you put your Vicks up your nose to kind of get the smell out.
It's that strong.
Yeah, but then you get used to it and you don't even notice it anymore. You don't even notice you stink, because you carry the odor with you everywhere too.
So you come home smelling like death?
Yeah, I actually went to my son's house one time, and in my scrubs still, and he had babies at the time. They're all grown. But anyway, he started picking up his kids and smelling their diapers and thinking, man, and then he smelled me. He goes, Mom, it's you. You stink.
Hold on 1 second. Let's back up to the very beginning. How did this come about for you that you started working in a morgue? Tell me about how you got the job, your very first day on the job. Like, walk me through that very, very first beginning process.
I actually was working as IV therapy in a hospital, main hospital in Baltimore, and all I did was IVs. And they were doing in-service about donation for organ donation or eye donations. I'd never, ever heard of it before or seen it. And on a dare, somebody said, hey, ask for their hiring. So me being, okay, I did. And they accepted me, which was like I had never seen a dead person's eyes being taken out. I've seen dead person in the hospitals and everything and taking them to the morgue, but I've never seen an autopsy or anything like that. When I went for and this is something you cannot learn in college. They cannot teach you. This is hands-on teaching. So when I went to the morgue the first time, my trainer was a guy, and he said, if you can't handle us, because I'm a female, we understand. I was like, really?
Are there not a lot of females that work in this industry?
Well, there is, but there's more male. They're men, because you've got to lift these bodies. You've got to be able to rotate the body over to make sure there's no fresh tattoos, no needle marks, and nothing that would be a contraindication.
Why can't there be fresh tattoos or needles or anything like that?
There'd be a possibility of hepatitis, some type of disease, or HIV.
Meaning that you were susceptible to it?
No, the patient might have it.
And if the patient has it...
then their eyes are no good for us. We can't touch it.
Tell me, why are you taking the eyes?
People who have glaucoma or are blind, or they're having some type of eye problems with their corneas, not their main nerve or anything like that. It has to be the corneas that we'd replace, not whole eye. Everyone thinks that they can get a whole eye in different color eyes. Then it's not that way.
When you would go in there, you would take the full eyeball.
At times. You got to realize that when I go to the morgue, and people don't understand this, it's at the morgue, it's homicide, suicide, suspicious death, body found dead. I'm not going to look at your license. And this is something that I disagree with as a other person, but this is my job, so I got to do it. I'm not going to look at your license to see if you were a donor. Don't matter. If you're in the morgue, you're going to be cutting up, diced, and everything else. So I'm going to take your eyes or your corneas.
And that's legal, to take someone's eyes, even if
it was back when I was working. I don't know if they've changed the law now, but it was legal, which I disagree with, because if my child, okay, example, if you were a driver in a car accident,
okay,
you die in that car accident, you automatically have to go to the morgue and have an autopsy. That's legality. You want to see what killed you. Did you die from the accident, or did you have a heart attack prior to the accident and you crashed?
Okay, I understand that, but taking someone's eyeballs, where does that come into play? Like, why can you take someone's eyeballs if they are not an organ donor?
Because they're going to be chopped up anyway, and they're going to be disposed of. So why get rid of something that is reusable? And they're cutting you up. So after they go from the ear to over here and they pull down the face, then I pull up the face like a mask, and I take the whole eye or corneas.
Now, your very first time in the morgue, seeing someone's face pulled up over their skull, that didn't give you nightmares?
No, it didn't.
you have to be like really, really tough, like thick-skinned.
You've got to think this is not somebody's wife, someone's daughter, someone's son's husband. This is not a human anymore. It's just a thing.
But do you not see them as a human? Do you not look and like do you ever see someone that like looks really, really just young or beautiful, or someone you know? Like how are you able to disassociate like that when you know, because this is people that are freshly dead. This is not like an old person.
At times, freshly dead. Sometimes they've been dead for quite a while, like in the decomp section. That I had to go look at it. Yeah, I mean, I saw the babies are the hardest to look at.
Really?
The babies that's where my emotions kind of get to me. This one baby, she was beautiful. She was an angel. And the mother said that she had SIDS death. But she was so deformed after I pulled the blanket back to look at her that the mother was a crack addict, and she had done all kinds of drugs being pregnant with this baby, and she actually had suffocated the baby.
So what was the cause of death for the baby?
Well, she suffocated it.
The
mother. The mother killed it.
And this was like in the autopsy confirmed?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How old was this baby?
About 6 weeks.
Wow.
I think she felt so guilty if she had any guilt, or maybe she just didn't want to take care of the baby.
Do you ever follow up on the cases in terms of, like, was this mother arrested? Did it ever come to light about the truth, or did it...
It's too hard. I see so many bodies. There were so many bodies. There's no way I could follow. I would maybe see it in the news. I would actually, because I was night shift for a long time, I would watch the news in the morning when I got home from my shift, and knowing what my next night was going to be. So homicide, body found outside, cause of death unknown. TV lies. The police lie. So the truth comes out when the pathologist tells you really what happened.
So you would watch the news kind of like just to give you a heads up on what's to come for your shift on the next day.
Right.
And I imagine living, here in Baltimore, there's probably, this is one of the murder capitals of America.
Yeah, I mean, the homicides were very high, suspicious death. It was strange because a lot of people think that Baltimore is like the hot city for drug and murders. Carroll County was the big thing for hitmen, hire for, killers for the drugs back in Carroll County, which is like out in the farmland in the woods. They actually brought a girl in that I saw, a teenager that had been, she was tied behind her back, and she was out in the woods for like, I guess 2 months she was there, but she'd been assassinated.
And all of this, seeing this young teenage girl, this newborn baby, 6 weeks old, and all of this, and you're able to go in there and just be like, oh, pull back their face, snip their eyeballs out, and then go home and eat dinner with your husband, or just go about your day.
When I would go home, my kids would be used to it. They weren't skirmishing or anything like that. We would talk about, what did you see today, Ma? You should have seen this person, and I would describe what I saw. For instance, this one guy came home and found his wife in bed with his best friend. So he blew her face off, shot his best friend, and then turned the gun on himself. Working in the morgue, you have to have a sick sense of humor at times.
I can only imagine. I mean,
yeah.
What is the atmosphere like working in a morgue, like with your colleagues and coworkers and stuff? Do you guys, is it a dreadful place? Do you guys like...
I don't mean any disrespect to anybody because this is somebody's loved one, but I can't think of it that way. So we joke around, and no disrespect to anybody, but we have to find some type of humor, or we wouldn't be able to do our job.
I can imagine. I mean, because it is probably like emotionally tasking. Never mind, like you were talking about the physical, like you got to be able to lift the body and move it around, but. In the end of the day, you are seeing a 6-week-old baby girl who was murdered by her mother. You are seeing a teenage girl who was, tied up in the woods and shot.
Right.
What did you guys do at work to kind of lighten the mood, to kind of make it a better work environment? Do you guys play music? Do you guys...
They had music on there, but now all your TV shows with Dr. G, medical examiner, your morgue is not that clean. So they brought a body in that had been burned up in a fire. I'm going to be walking all over the floor, and there's going to be tissue flaking off of that body. And I'm going to be bringing that piece of the body home with me. And so it's just what it is.
I couldn't imagine. Like for me, I would have to shower for like 10 hours. Like in my life, I have never seen a dead body in real life. I'm Jewish. I've never been to an open casket funeral. To me, like
they do more. They do make sounds sometimes.
The dead bodies make sounds.
Sometimes the gas is in them. It's just okay. When I would go into work, again, I was running night shifts, so I would go to my main office and I would call down to the morgue. Hi, do you have any drivers for me? Meaning any dead drivers. And they said, yeah, we have a couple of them. So I would go down to the medical examiners. I would walk into the freezer, which is where they keep the bodies at. Then I would do my assessment, make sure I didn't see any fresh tattoos, any fresh needle marks or anything. I would read the police report or accident report or whatever. And then I would go ahead and leave a car. I toe tag them. That eye bank was here. And then I would draw out vit from the eye, which is like a snot inside the eye to hold your globe. This gives you your shape. And for that, I would take out your cornea. Again, I'm not looking at your license because you're going to have an autopsy. So when I draw that vit out of there, I put it in a vial, a tube, like a blood tube, and I would stick it between your toes. So the next day when they do the autopsy, they've already got that, so they can test it.
And when you would go, you would be alone? Just alone in a morgue, in a room. How many dead bodies are in this room?
Oh my goodness, there could be 20. they're lined up on gurneys, 20, and they're all got either. Most of the time, they're covered up. This one guy, oh my goodness, he was huge. He was like really morbidly obese, and he decided to play with some adult toys. And he was in a bathtub, and for some reason, he had the hose and everything up his butt and exploded. So they
back up for a second. He died
in the
from
tub.
this.
Mm-hmm.
From what? What was his cause of
He was
death?
sticking the hose up his butt for whatever reason. I guess to give him an erection. I don't know. And I guess maybe he was coming and he went.
I mean, I guess that's the best way to go, right?
Yeah, I guess so. That's
it,
like the people who hang themselves. When they get the choking themselves and they're jacking off or something. I'm sorry, can I say that?
Yeah, you could say whatever you want. People kill themselves while masturbating.
That's accidental. They don't mean to.
Oh, you mean like rough sex and people will be choking themselves?
No, I can't remember what the name of it is. It's asphyxiation, but they actually put a rope or something over like a beam in their house, and as they're the person actually themselves is choking themselves as they're whacking off.
But their intent is not to die. Their intent is only to just like feel like they're being choked.
No, because when they're choking themselves, it gives a euphoria or whatever, like this great feeling, and then as they climax, and sometimes it's such a great climax they lose their footing and then end up hanging themselves.
Wow.
Yeah, and unfortunately, usually it's the family member, like the mom or dad, finds the body.
This is like a young person that it happens
to. Or it could be older, but yeah. Yeah, I've seen them. And then they bring them into the morgue, and they cannot take off, they would call them bow ties, which is not really that. Or the rope was in it. They can't take it off until the pathologist sees everything.
So is it true that if someone dies with a boner, then it stays hard after they die?
It goes down. The only time it stays hard is if you were in a fire for some reason. When you're burnt alive or whatever, then your dick is hard.
Really?
You have to be alive, though, burnt alive. If you're dead, it's not going to go up.
My head is exploding now a little bit, honestly. Hold on one second. You guys have code names for a lot of things. Like, if someone hung themselves, it's called a bow tie. Do you have any drivers? It means that they died in a car accident. What other code names do you have for
We have
people?
floaters, which is meaning someone who died in the water drowned. And floater really means you've probably been in the water for quite some time, and when you come in, you're stinky. And they have a decomp room. Now, the decomp room is separate from a regular morgue. It's off out in the garage because it stinks. And
so it smells even worse than the dead bodies smell.
Yeah, it's like rotting meat for like 2 or 3 months rotting out in the sun.
Do you ever get used to it?
Yeah, you do. But
really?
You know what? You get used to it, but then if you ever go out in public, and I know that smell. Something's dead. And you never forget the smell. You never do. We had the one woman in the decomp room who was... she was dead for about a couple of months in her apartment, and her cats ate her face. Now, again, I have only 12 to 18 hours that I can recover your eye. I can't do anything with this person, but the curiosity, I've got to go see it. So I go out to the morgue, out to the decomp room. Yeah, she stunk, but and it wasn't as gross as it sounded because it's little nibbles. This maybe like a rat had bit her or something like that.
So this woman essentially is like the fear coming true. Everyone always says like, "Oh, you know, you're a cat lady. When you die, your cats will eat you."
Yeah, they will.
It's actually true.
Yeah, it will. Yeah.
How many cats did she have?
She had like 5 or 10.
I once heard somewhere that if a person dies and their pet starts to eat them, legally the pet has to be put to sleep because it's eaten human flesh, and
I've never heard that. I don't know.
I guess that's, you know, when I interview a vet, we'll ask them that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, why? I don't know.
That's so disgusting. So aside from you just doing your job, you built a genuine curiosity, like, because, you know, this
Morbid
woman
curiosity.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I do. I miss the morgue.
You do?
I do. I miss it because it's never boring.
I can imagine.
Never. I mean,
I'm fascinated right now.
I mean, you just. Your whole day is never going to be the same. Each day was different. whether it be, traffic accident, or, for instance, unfortunately, my son's best friend that he went to school with had been riding his first time. It was right after Christmas. He was driving his first time motorcycle, and he was going down and hit a guardrail. Now, he had his helmet on. They always say you got to wear your seatbelt and your helmet, which I have my own opinion of seatbelts and helmets. But anyway, he went through the guardrail and it decapitated him, cut his head off. So to bring him in, the body in, he came in without his head, but he's carrying his head or his arm because we've got to take that out inside the morgue. The pathologist has to take it. The police can't remove anything. So they brought him in holding his own head.
That's and you said this was your son's friend.
Yes.
His first time ever riding a
motorcycle, yeah, and he just lost control.
And his head completely decapitated
yeah.
to the point where he comes to the morgue holding his own head. I mean, like, you can't make this stuff up. That is
right. It's like, oh wow, I know you.
Did you call your son? Like,
Mm-mm. No, I can't do that because, he definitely found out by the time I got home, he knew his friend was dead. And then his mom, did you see her? I said, yeah, I did see him. Or another friend, people would say drug addicts. My one son had a friend that was a drug addict. Of course, at the funeral home, they're going to say that, it was probably just something, with his heart. They don't know what it was, congenital or whatever. They would say, Mom, what was it? He overdosed on oxy. But I can't say that to the family. But I know the truth.
And does the family know the truth, or are they just denying it? Or are they in denial?
Probably in denial, but they know down deep. They know. When the mother went in and found her son foaming at the mouth and he's dead. Come on, she knows what her son's been doing.
When you see your son's friend laying in the morgue carrying his own head, are you still able to disassociate, given that this is even though you knew it? Like,
he's been at my house. He ate dinner at my table. But I cannot think of him as another human being again. This is no one to me.
So if I drop dead right now, right here, you'd be able to just pull my face out and cut out my eyeballs right now? Because
if I had instruments and there was a need for it, yeah. But back up. You're Jewish. And we do respect the religion, that if someone comes in that they are of that religion, I won't touch you.
Wow, I'm really glad to hear that I have a saving grace. For my eyeballs get to stay with me. You heard that, Alan?
Wait. If I know, but see, if I'm coming in at nighttime and you're a driver, I don't know that you're Jewish. Here I come.
Isn't that why we have the driver's licenses and it says
exactly.
organ donor or no? I mean,
I don't, and like I said, I don't agree with the law, and I don't know if they've changed it since I have left doing the inoculations. But if my child died in a car accident, and it's just the driver, if you're a passenger, you don't have an autopsy. It's just the driver. But I wouldn't want somebody coming in and taking my body parts for my kids unless I gave them permission.
Was there anything that you saw in the morgue that at any point you were like, okay, this is too much. This is too gruesome. This is too disgusting, or does it all just blur together for you?
I don't get sick of watching anything anymore. I just, if I see the murder shows, I go, that's not right. I kind of critique all this stuff because I see the real thing. So, yeah, I don't get grossed out.
What is the most gruesome thing you've seen? I mean, does it get worse than seeing your son's friend with his head under his arm?
I've seen mistaken. The one guy was a high-profile thing here. He was a twin.
A famous person.
Well, to the Baltimore area, let's say, to the Baltimore area.
Okay.
He was a twin, and his twin had gotten off on a rape. And unfortunately, the people wanted to get revenge, and they got the wrong twin. And they tied...
How do you know this?
Because I saw the body.
But how do you know which twin is which?
Because I read the police report. And that's what it came down to when they've taken the pictures of the body when they're coming in, because they always take pictures, and I was reading the police report. In the background, talking to the family, the cops had brought in this cheat sheet thing. The twin was tied to a back of a bumper and pulled on a dirt road where his complete skin was come off of him. And then they actually stuck dildos up his butt. And they brought the body in. Come to find out, it was the wrong twin.
Talking to you today, I didn't realize that sex toys played so much into a morgue. But
It does.
So hold on. This high profile person is there, and the killers think that they got the right guy.
Right.
But you know the truth that they have the wrong guy, and it's all over the news.
Right.
And the news is reporting that so and so is dead.
Right.
So in today, do people know now that the real?
Yeah, it came out that they killed the wrong guy.
Oh, so now it's public knowledge.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
After everything you've seen in the morgue, what would you say is the worst way to die?
For me, I would not want to drown because you know exactly you're trying to breathe and you're struggling or whatever, and then the next one would be in a fire. That hurts.
Yeah, that.
Let me die in my sleep or shoot me.
Are you afraid of death?
No.
Were
No,
you,
not at all.
Did you feel this way before you started this job?
I'm a Christian, so I'm not afraid of death because I think when I die, I'm going to heaven. Hopefully, I don't go to hell. Never know with me, though. But please, Lord Jesus, forgive me for that.
but being surrounded by so much death and seeing the people in the morgue, do they treat the dead with respect, or is it just another day at the office?
I think on a whole, they do try to show respect, but then on this flip side, because we see so much horrible things that the people can do to people, you have to have a really sick sense of humor. And again, you can't think of this as a person. So you kind of crack jokes, not meaning any disrespect to the people, and we never would do that with family because they do have to sometimes bring family down to identify a body. So we have to be very respectful that way.
What's the longest that a body goes unidentified?
A couple months, and then it usually goes to Potter's Field when unclaimed and buried there without anything. It's just a...
So you don't have a body sitting there for years and years, just unclaimed, just taking up space?
I have body parts.
Aside from bodies, you have random body parts?
Yeah, body parts, yeah.
Where do they come from?
In the freezer. I mean, that's where, they found a bone in the woods. So they're going to put that in a package in the freezer. So who knows, like 10 years from now when they have some other type of investigation or reports, they're going to come back in. So let me test this bone first to see who it is.
What's the most random body part you've ever seen just sitting in a freezer?
Oh, probably an arm or a leg. A head, a skull.
And this just, open the freezer. Here we have a head. Let me move about my day.
Yeah. It's like, okay, remember, when I go at night, I walk into it's called a walk-in box.
You're not afraid being there alone at night in a morgue surrounded by dead bodies ever?
It's not the dead that's going to hurt you. It's the alive people who's going to get you.
I don't know. After talking to you a little bit.
That's going to get you. But, yeah, I mean, there are times I would walk in, and out of the corner of my eye, I'd see like a black smoke. I'm like, okay, I didn't do this to you. So I would feel the spirit sometimes. Sometimes the back of my hair would stick up like, okay, you're an evil person. you know, I could feel spirits. Sometimes they weren't nice.
Really? Do most people who work at morgues feel spirits and believe in ghosts and believe in all this stuff?
Whether they admit it or not, yeah, they do. They have to because they've seen too much.
Do you feel like a morgue is haunted?
I'm sure they do. I actually sometimes think they're, the real person that was alive maybe might be watching me as I'm turning the body over or something like that. And, like I said, I see like the black smoke or like I feel somebody standing next to me and I turn around and there's nothing there. And I always say, I'm doing a job. I didn't do it. But it's spooky at night. During the day, it's okay. But at night, when you're the only person walking in and there's like maybe 20 bodies and they're all lined up and covered up or exposed, brain matter coming out, it's kind of interesting.
Most of these bodies that are there, how many of them are just died in their sleep, look like sleeping peacefully, versus how many of them are decapitated, bloody, wounded, with, missing body parts and limbs? Like, how gruesome is it versus peaceful?
I'd say maybe 5% peaceful.
Really?
Yeah, the majority of them are homicide, suicide, suspicious death.
Is this overall for the morgue, or just based off of your job because you only dealt with people that were murdered? Is that correct? You were mostly or died accidentally?
It was the morgue. I went into the morgue. I had 12 to 18 hours to recover. Now remember, the globe is called sclera, the white of your eye. You can't transplant that whole eye into somebody else. People think that they're going to get a new eye color. You're not going to that. It's just a contact lens, the cornea, which is transplanted into a donor.
But you take the entire eyeball.
Yeah, I do take the whole eye sometimes. The sclera is like really tough, like a baseball leather, and you cut that up, and if that really is good for if you've been doing a lot of cocaine, you got a hole up in your nose. You put that little bit of white of your eyeball up there, and that adheres to your nose and heals the hole.
Doing a lot of cocaine gives you a hole in your nose?
Yeah.
I've never done cocaine.
Yeah, it eats the sternum and everything.
Really?
Yeah, it does.
Honest question. You don't have to answer it. Have you ever dropped an eyeball?
Yes. Yes, I have.
Do they bounce?
Sometimes.
Oh my God.
Sometimes they just go splat. It depends if I've taken out their vitreous first. Remember that keeps your round eye? If I pull that out, your eye collapses.
I mean, you ever think to yourself, like, this is straight up out of a horror film? Like, I'm literally holding body parts and eyeballs and surrounded by death. Like, does it ever haunt you at home? Do you ever have nightmares? Do any of the dead bodies you come in contact with ever haunt you in your dreams? Is there one that's like stuck with you all this time that you just can't get out of your head, or does it all blend together for you?
Just that one little baby that was so beautiful. She really has haunted me because I keep thinking she could have been somebody, but the mother took it upon herself for whatever reason to do away with her. But other than that, at times I think I wonder if I bring people home with me, like spirits, that they attach themselves to you.
Really?
Because we had some strange goings on in my house one time where I went home and there was actually blood going up. I lived in Splifoyer, and there was blood going up the steps. And I have dogs, and my one female had been fixed, so I know that wasn't her. And I checked her pads or paws. So we could not figure out why we had blood in my house. And then, of course, my microwave clock went to 666. I go, okay, you need to go. Whoever you are, you need to go. And I actually had to do a cleansing in my house because whatever had followed me was evil.
Really?
So, yeah. So,
I hope you didn't bring anyone here with you today.
I could have. I mean, if the lights flicker, I always say, knock it off. I talk
I don't
to
know.
him.
Alan's in charge of lighting, so
I talk to the dead. Yeah, I do.
You do?
I do.
You talked to this baby girl?
I did.
Do you know what her name was?
I don't remember that. I've seen over 100 bodies, probably about 500 bodies in my time.
In the 15 years, you've seen how many? 500?
Probably plus.
Really?
And the thing is, a lot of the homicides or suicides don't make it onto the news, so you really don't know the correct number.
Yeah, I mean, suicide. It doesn't get reported. It's a huge thing. Mm-hmm. Of all the bodies there, what would you say is the most cause of death? Like, what are there the most gunshot victims? Are they car accident victims? Like, what would you say? Break it down for me statistically.
I think there is more, for the homicides, it'd be more gunshots. Very seldom knifings or stabbings, something like that. I'm just thinking of this guy. I don't know why he's coming to my mind. Maybe he's here. He was like 80 years old, coming home from a wedding, and he had blue suede shoes on. And the Elvis song, "Don't Step on My Blue Suede Shoes." I mean, we joke around about it, but it's like he was murdered for his money, which he only had like $5. But
and they didn't even take the blue suede shoes.
No, they didn't. No, But no, the homicides would probably be gunshots.
So when when someone dies, they go to the morgue as is, with their toys, with their
Right.
stuff, with their
Can't touch
whatever.
it. Right.
What are some of the strangest? I mean, we touched on that a little bit. You told me about the guy with the thing up his ass.
Yeah.
If someone, let's say, dies on Halloween in a Halloween costume, or Christmas,
Yeah.
you know, with their Santa hat or
This
something.
one guy, he was a bus driver, and it was Halloween. And he came in with his Halloween costume still on, his hat and everything. And it was a shame. It was a shame because it was foggy, and he got hit head on with the bus and died there. But yeah, he has to keep on his costume.
What was he dressed as?
A witch.
That's fitting, I guess.
Yeah, a witch. And then and which is really kind of sick on my part. I mean, good God, this one guy came in and he was dressed in his 3-piece suit and he was handsome. And it's like, okay, I looked to see if he had a wedding ring on. I'm like, what is wrong with you, Donna? My God, he's dead. I'm looking for a wedding ring. I'm like, oh,
So
well.
you would check out the guys and be like,
I did.
peek under the sheets.
Well, yeah, I did. we had this one high profile case come in, and yeah, he was Swiss cheese. They blew him away.
By Swiss cheese, you mean he had that many gunshot holes in
about
him?
40.
40.
Yeah, 40.
Wow.
And of course, it's been all over the news. They actually did a true life series things on HBO or ID channel or whatever, which was BS. Total bullshit. Because I knew the true story about what happened, but they made it.
This is different than the rape case and the twins.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And anyway, the guy that came in, he wasn't a bad looking guy. And
Whatever was left of him.
well, yeah, but he was crazy. But he had committed some murders too and everything. But I did look under the sheet and I said this was his problem. He had a little wee wee. Sorry. But
Hold. Are you able to say the person's name? Who this was? Or
No,
this is all right. So
no.
this is someone. I know you have these strict confidentiality things, and I know that you even being on the show in the first place is a little bit.
Oh yeah, it's all dicey.
Yeah,
no one sees me.
we talked about a little bit about in advance questions you can't
Right.
answer and all that, but so this is a high profile celebrity. He
No,
comes
that was a high profile
murder.
murder.
A high profile murder, and
In Maryland.
they've done a television show about him,
Right,
about his
yeah.
death. Was it accurate?
No,
Not at all.
it was bullshit. No, they made the girlfriend look like a poor innocent victim. They made her family look like I don't know, Ozzie and Harriet, but it was like they were drug dealers.
How do you know so much about the history of these people and their stories and all that when you're just going in there?
Because I have to read what the police have wrote down. And I was watching TV too as this all was going on. And I knew what had happened truthfully. I mean, it wasn't, and I did say something I shouldn't have said, but it wasn't known how many times he was shot. So things had been fabricated.
How many times do you think he was shot? You said
I know for a fact he was shot 40 times.
40 times.
Yeah.
Did they know which bullet was the one that did him in?
How many bullets? I mean, come on.
I don't
know. I mean,
40. Where were the bullets on his body? Just
he was all over. I mean, they just blew him away because they were so angry that they couldn't get this guy because he killed a couple of people, a pregnant woman too. And the thing was, the cops, they covered their asses because they were saying that he was coming up in a menacing way. No.
hold on. The cops shot him 40 times?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant this was like a bunch of other drug dealers killed
No.
him.
The cops blew him away. When they finally got him, they blew him away.
How many people in the morgue are there for that were killed by cops?
Oh, probably about 20, 30%.
Really?
Yeah, and the thing is, it's their word.
Well,
know?
nowadays, cops have to wear body cams and
Right.
with the Black
But back
Lives
then they didn't.
Matter movement and like a lot has changed, but or at least we're in that direction
Right.
where things there's a lot of awareness being brought to it and things hopefully are changing. I don't know. You're not in the industry anymore, so you couldn't
No.
tell me if it. all of this that you've seen, is this common in morgues across the country and across the world, or is it because we live in Maryland and this is a high?
Common. It's common. Now, the place I used to work for is no longer. It has been sold to, you got tissue banks, which does bones and organs. We actually, well, I wasn't working there anymore, but they actually put on the guy that shot himself in the face. He was 52, and then somebody up here in Bel Air was in his 20s, got hit by a car. That guy got that guy's face. So they can take your face and put it onto my face.
Hold on. Somebody died.
Got hit by a car.
Got hit by a car, and they did a face transplant.
Yeah.
So you saw the same face twice,
Yeah.
and you recognized him.
Yeah, I mean, and plus he went to his family who donated the face. That was a donation because they can't just take a face.
You can't make this stuff up, huh?
No, and they actually did a series thing on ID Channel with the guy. I think he's from South Carolina, and that's public, so I'm not breaking anything.
Are face transplants common? I thought that it's
They
like a
do
very
face and they also do limb transplants too. Like if you lost your arm or something, they can replace it with another arm. We're all recyclable. Everything's recyclable.
These eyeballs that you would take when someone would get them,
The corneas.
the corneas. If you got two, they don't necessarily come from the same person. You can have one from a man, one from a woman, one from a whatever.
Yeah, and it was sad because now the one person, I actually took the donor, the dead person's eye, and a friend of my daughter's grandmother was the recipient. And she had asked me, well, what was the donor like? I can't tell you that. That's confidentiality. But, she wanted to know whose corneas she had, but I couldn't tell her that.
Wow.
So, But, a lot of people think that if you, some of the things were, if you were in jail, in prison, I can't touch you for like 12 months, for a year, because there's that contraindication that you might have HIV.
But I thought that, you mean, so if someone died within 12 months of getting out of prison, you don't test the body for HIV? Because
oh, yeah, we test the blood for every disease known, like mad cow's disease and everything. Everything's tested. But if I know that, like this one person I was talking about that got blown away by the police, he just gotten back out of prison. So, no, even if he had any blood left in him, which he didn't, I couldn't touch him because he just got out of prison.
Are you an organ donor?
No.
Why is that?
Well,
I know we're getting a little personal here, and not based on your job. I'm just fascinated to hear.
It's because probably, and the reason why before is because the people I worked with, I didn't want them seeing me. Say, hey, Donna had tattoos. Did you see that in piercings that she had? I didn't want them because I worked with these people, and these people probably are already either retired or died themselves. So yeah, I mean, if they wanted my organs, yeah, they could have them. But since I have multiple sclerosis, legality-wise, they can't touch anything on me. I'm like mutated tissue. They don't want my stuff. But if my child wished to donate, then okay, that's their choice. But no, I would not offer. It's my personal opinion.
So aside from working in the morgue, you also did hospital recovery.
Right. Hospital recovery is totally different. I mean, I have to have next of kin's consent for me to go there. Now, they can consent to the whole globe with the whole eye, which I would take, or they can consent just to the cornea. Now, if I go in and I take the whole globe or eye or a cornea, I've got to draw blood. I actually go to the floor that the person's been on, the hospital floor. I read the medical records. I read everything, what antibiotics they were getting, what they were in there for, what type of infection they had. It's very important, if they have staph infection or any type of blood infection I can't take. And then I go down to the morgue in the hospital because that's where the body's been taken. I have to draw blood because we have to still test our own blood. I would go for the jugular vein, and if I couldn't get blood, and you do bleed still when you're dead, or I have to go into the ephemeral, which I would have to pull your legs apart and stick the needle was about this long. It's like an epidural needle, we just get in your back, real long. So I would go into the groin. The only thing is that but you lose your body fluids when you die. So sometimes if they didn't have a diaper on, I take the diaper off, it'd be poopy or pee or something like that, and it stunk.
And that'd be your job to clean it?
Well, I'd have to wipe everything off because it had to be semi-sterile. It wasn't sterile, but it would be sort of sterile to get the blood. So yeah, I'd have to.
None of this grosses you out. None of this.
I gag sometimes from like poopies, but no. I mean,
So someone who shit themselves is worse than someone who's been blown apart with their head decapitated to you.
Just a difference of smell. The one who's lost his head doesn't smell that bad.
Does anything faze you? Like, is there anything in the world that you can see that would actually gross you out at this point, or make you take a step back and go, "Wow"?
No, unless it was one of my kids. But other than that, no. It's like I've built this wall up between my heart. I mean, I'm not hard-hearted. I love people, but I can't. The emotion's not there for what I've been doing for so long.
Let me ask you a question. Necrophilia, is that a thing that happens in morgues?
Yeah, usually they happen more in the funeral homes.
Really?
Yeah, because in the morgues you've got cameras, and it's back in the day they put more cameras up because some people were caught stealing from the dead.
Stealing from the dead.
Yeah,
Okay,
remember they got to bring the body in as is.
So
you might have a ring.
engagement rings and all that type of stuff. And
yeah.
Really?
So that's going to happen with the sex with the dead body. It's going to probably happen in a funeral home where you don't have the cameras.
And you've heard of cases like this where because I mean it's a thing. It's a real thing.
Yeah, I've heard of it, and it's like you wouldn't think of the person that you knew that was told that they did it. Like, no, he looks so normal. But yeah, it does happen.
You know people who are necrophiliacs?
I knew of a person who was, yeah.
And they worked in the morgue?
They worked in the funeral home.
Really?
Yeah.
People like apply to jobs for that reason?
Probably. Get away with it, yeah.
That's, I mean, I can't even fathom it. It's this, I don't know. This talking to you has just been.
But you remember, I still talk to the dead too. We had a young girl who was 18 years old, beautiful, beautiful blonde girl, beautiful, and her boyfriend broke up with her, and she hung herself. And I went to the morgue. They had taken her to the hospital for some reason, because each county has a medical examiner or whatever, and so he had to release her body to the main medical examiner in Baltimore City. And I went to the hospital to recover. And I said, why would you do this? You're so beautiful. And that kind of teared me up a little bit. But then, so to speak, put my mask on. Okay, back to work.
Really? I mean, sitting here talking to you today, one thing that I'm just, my kind of takeaway from it is, number one, we're all going to die. It's so inevitable. And number two, we have no control over what happens to us when we die. Our bodies.
To a point, because if you die in the hospital, let's say you want to donate. Mm-hmm. But if your family member comes in and says, oh, well, no, I don't want this. But you have a living will that you have made out that you want to donate. Your wife, father, son, whoever your family member or next of kin is throwing a fit, then they won't touch you.
If you were to start all over again, would you go back into the same industry? Would you have you'd do it sooner?
Yeah.
You'd have made it a whole career.
Yes. Yeah, I started out as IV therapy, and if I'd have known it sounds really, cold and calculated, but it was exciting.
I mean, I can imagine. Look, there's a whole genre for horror, and gore and blood and all that. And there's a lot of reason that people go into medicine. There are people that love to cut and the the science and all that. It is fascinating. Like sitting here talking to you, I think this is about as much as I can take. In terms of just.
But think of it
the
this
thoughts.
way. Think of it this way. Leaving all the gore out, somebody else is getting eyesight. So that's the whole bottom line. That's the whole thing that I can justify what I was doing. Somebody else can see now.
Because it's the bigger picture. It's more. It's less about this person and about
that person's gone. He's gone. There's nothing I can do to help them anymore. But I can help this person. I can make sure I do my job right. I make sure I do my blood work right. I make sure that I do my cuts right, that I don't damage anything.
In the end of the day, you can't do anything for the dead, but you could help the living, and that's
Exactly.
what it is that you are making a career out of.
Right.
I mean, look, it's noble work. What's the average salary of someone working in this
Not
field?
enough. Not enough. It was about maybe $35,000.
That's it?
Yeah.
$35,000 having to deal with blood and shit and eyeballs.
The people at the morgue are called dieners. They're actually doing the cutting. They make less than that.
Really?
Yeah, and they get into. They're really doing the cutting as the pathologist comes in and then takes the organs and everything. But they're really getting down into the blood and guts. And they have to undress the people and wash them off and everything.
Is there a shortage of people in this industry?
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
What advice would you give to people after listening to this episode who go, you know what, maybe that's something that I want to get into? What would you tell them?
For what I know, because when I was doing it, I didn't have to have my bachelor's degree. Now I think you have to have at least a bachelor's degree to apply.
In what?
For organ donation, for recovery.
There's a degree in that. Okay.
Mm-hmm. But you probably have to go through, maybe do a nursing class, get your RN, and then you go, because they can't teach you this in any college. This is hands-on only. So then you apply for it, and then they take you out and train you. They train you.
But the good news is that if you mess up, it's not like you killed them. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you don't want to mess up. I mean, okay, if I cut the eye wrong, then that's no good.
Right.
So,
It just defeats the purpose.
You could use it for research. And that's another thing, too. A lot of eyes are used for research, and people are thinking they're donating for somebody to see, but it goes to research.
But aside from, the educational side of it, what advice do you have for them to mentally prepare yourself for a job like this?
There is no preparation, I think. Once you go there, the first couple of times when you go through your walk through, if they do put you in there, you'll know right away if you can do it or not.
How many people after the first walkthrough do you never see again?
About 50%.
Really?
Yeah.
That's higher. That's a higher number than I thought.
And it's kind of funny because you would think it would be the females. For instance, they have a rotation. All rookie cops have to do a rotation and watch an autopsy. It's standard. Usually, it's the biggest guy, the big 6'6", 250-pound guy, muscular guy. If it stinks, walk away. But don't try to be macho. We actually would put bets on when the new recruits would come in, who was going to throw up first.
Really?
And usually it's the biggest macho guy trying to be macho. If it stinks, leave. And that's what I said. I would always put Vicks up my nose.
You don't wear a face mask?
Not when I first walk into the morgue, no. I don't put a face mask on until I would go to the body itself. But if they're doing their orientation of what body did this or whatever, how the death was, we're just all standing around there with our clipboards and writing our notes and everything. And I would toe tag people. And then after they did the autopsy, I'd go back and take out what I need, pull the face back up over, and take what I needed.
Wow.
So as far as usually they really screen you pretty good before they bring you in to see an autopsy or to take body parts or that type of thing, or negotiation.
And you don't have to sit in therapy for years after this and talk about the death and the horrors that you've seen?
Don't.
Donna?
But it makes me aware of how crazy people are out there. And also kind of makes it bad when I watch these murder shows on TV. Like, that's not how it is. Come on.
How long does it take from the time you get to the morgue to the time your job is done? How long is that process?
Usually takes me about 45 minutes to an hour to take the eyes out, to draw the vit out, I put the needle in the eyeball, pull out the vit, and draw the blood, and I'm out of there. Then I go back to the main office, and I put it under a microscope and make sure there's cells and everything, and then I grade it. What type of eye, a cornea is good or whatever. A lot of the eyes go cross seas, too.
So aside from, we've been talking about all these, the horror stories and the really interesting aspects of it, but in reality, there's the job part, the part where you have to do the grading and the microscopes and the bloods, right. And there's a lot more. It is a skill aside from it being this really.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't go in and say, oh, with a scooper and get it out. No, you have to know what you're doing. So I cannot. Okay, for instance, if I'm taking out an eye and the family has donated, I take whole globe. I will actually put cotton inside the eyeball where the eye was, and put an eye cap over top of it, because if it's an open casket, you need to make sure that face looks good. I don't want to bruise the face up.
When you take out someone's eyeball, what do you see? Their brain? Like, what do you see?
Yeah, it's a hole. It's like a hole. It's like a curved hole. That's it. I don't see the brain.
It's just
okay, what you got is here. You got 9 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Those are your muscles in your eyes. So what I would do, you have what's like saran wrap covering your eye, conjunctiva. So I would cut that, and I would clip onto this eye right here, this muscle. And then I would take, after I cut the muscles all the way around, I would take a scoop type of pair of scissors and go back here, and I would cut the optic nerve, and then I would pull out the eye.
Wow, Donna, I could talk to you all day. You do, or you did something that many of us, me included, could never do. Honestly, I have so much respect for what you've done. Caring for the dead, helping the living in the future with the donors and all that. It's honestly been so fascinating. You heard it here first. Donna, thank you so much for tuning in to It's My Job to Know Yours. If you like this episode, please share it, please subscribe, please like it. It is free. And a big thank you to the Baltimore Improv Group for letting us film here. A big thank you to Alan behind the camera for doing all the tech support. And thank you for tuning in, and have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
This has been It's My Job to Know Yours. I make your business my business.
Well, I just did my job, so now it's time for you to do your job, which is to hit that subscribe button. Because if you don't do your job, I'm going to lose my job, and let's face it, I'm qualified for nothing.